This is the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast.
Welcome back to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, your home for all things Saskatchewan, all things real estate. Really happy to have Sean Unger, the CEO of Claystone Developments, come on the podcast. And you and I were chatting at the REGS meeting, Sean, the Real Estate Investment Group of Saskatchewan. And you had this great idea about seniors housing. And I thought this would be just a perfect conversation to record and put out there, because I think it's something that's really going to be needed in Saskatchewan, as we do have this aging population. And I think you have some really great ideas around this. Before we get into it, though, just give us a brief introduction of yourself, what you do, and let us know a little bit about Sean Unger.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I started Claystone Developments about a little over 6 years ago now, and we started uh, doing a land development project specifically to launch some single family and multifamily, and really focus on 55 plus seniors living products for the market. We definitely saw that there was a big need for that in the market, and I think if anything, the need has only grown in the last few years for something like that. So prior to that, I was worked for an electrical contracting firm for about 10 years, and it was great. It was a good company, but I really wanted to go out on my own and start something new to launch this project specifically focused on seniors.
Where's home for you, Sean, and kind of where's your servicing base of where you guys will typically build and do projects in?
So we are based in Hague, so that's about 25 minutes outside of Saskatoon, between Saskatoon and Prince Albert. Our main development is in Hague, but we also have a development in Hepburn, and we do work south of Saskatoon in Dundurn as well. We really focus on smaller markets that we believe that have been neglected. We're also working on launching a development out in Langham as well, so that's about 15 minutes outside of Saskatoon too. So we're working on those in those communities also. But Hague is the main base for us.
Walk us through the origin story, or kind of what inspired you to start the senior housing, and kind of where it began for you.
Yeah, so I started this. The concept of this is at least 10 years old, where I really started thinking about this. I was fortunate that I knew all of my grandparents, all four of my grandparents. Um, they have all passed away now, but the first one passed away when I was in my 20s. But what I saw there was, I didn't like what I saw. So in each of their cases, they were in a home that they'd been in for many years, and they moved into a senior specific housing product. And it was good, but when things invariably happened health wise where they weren't able to stay where they were, they had to move because they couldn't get the help they needed. And the worst time to make a choice is when you have to make a choice. So they had a health event, something happened, and they needed to change where they were to get the help they needed now. And for anybody that's navigated the system, it's nothing but waiting lists and having to be assessed and then moving. And they all, both sets of my grandparents ended up being apart from each other after over 60 years of marriage, and they weren't in the same spot a lot of the time, and it was just not a good not a good situation at all, I didn't feel. And that was really the start of it, thinking there has to be a better way. We've got to do something differently. And that's where Claystone Developments was founded, and we started North Point Manor, which is our 55 plus community, based on that, where the idea is you can move in when you're independent. Uh, you can live independently. You can cook your own meals. You can live your own life. If you want to travel, you can lock the door and know that your place is safe and go down south for the winter or whatever you want to do. But if you need help in the future, or if your spouse needs help, if you need help with medication or bathing or lifting or meals or just any sort of personal care items, that you don't have to leave your home, not even your suite. You don't have to move down the hallway. You can stay in your suite, and help can come to you, and we can we can be there for the residents. And that is the vision, and that's the goal of North Point Manor.
It's an interesting model because I'm guessing as not simple is not the right word, but that also sounds incredibly complex. Where if you have the beginnings of a building where it starts off where people might be able to kind of exist on their own, it's a good place. But then you have to plan on for that end, that near the end stuff where they're going to need a lot more help. Walk us through the complexities, and there's got to be a lot of planning around putting together a building like this.
Uh, yes, absolutely there is. Um, it was a big learning curve, a lot of research, a lot of time went into it. We looked at a lot of different seniors communities that were already existing to see what was out there, and then put a lot of that together. The way we've designed it is it allows for people who are still perfectly independent to move in and still have that freedom. So but it's we're able to accommodate um, more levels of care as time has gone on. Just a couple of examples. So we don't have any stairs. If you're living there, you don't have to go up a stair. That's from the parking lot into the building, into your suite. There are no stairs. And so that's something that um, if you if you're not looking for it, you wouldn't necessarily notice it. But if your mobility is hindered, that's something that really strikes you. Another thing is bathing and showers specifically. We designed our showers so that they've got lots of room and lots of space, and they're totally barrier free. So people who have more difficulty moving around can easily get in and out. But it's not necessarily something, if you're perfectly able-bodied, you can still use the shower. It's no problem. Those sorts of things that we've put into our design to allow people to move in, and it's not like, oh, it's not institutional. It's not, oh, this is a place I don't want to be. It's, yeah, I can live here perfectly fine when I'm independent, but at the same time I can if I need to level up, then I don't need to go somewhere else.
I want to get to kind of the emotional aspect, but just specifically staying with kind of the logistics of this. When you're talking about like the building that you would put together, how many units would there be, Sean? And are they rented? Are they owned? Is it a combination? How do you kind of have the setup of that?
Yeah, so this build, what we have under construction right now is phase one, and it's 26,000 square feet, and we have 22 units in this building. So that's phase one, and we have quite a bit more land. So this is wing one. Our next phase is we have the central building is called the hub, and then we've got three more wings, more or less like the one we're building now, planned for the future. So ultimately, we're looking at anywhere between 90 and 100 suites in the building when it's all said and done. And as far as the model goes, we were really back and forth on that. We were toying with the idea of a purchase model. We looked at a life lease model, but ultimately we decided to just do a rental model. And it's just a strict rental model, so someone can move in, and then they pay their rent, and when they're, if they pass away, or if they need to move for any reason, then they can just terminate the lease. And that was one other thing we did to provide some peace of mind. We're signing 3-year leases for people so that they have some locked in, some price stability, but they can cancel it on 60 days notice. So if they need to get out, again, given the demographic that we're serving, there's a real, we feel that that's very attractive for people who are moving in case they need to leave, or to end their lease.
Going into the emotional aspect, and I have grandparents who I think they were incredibly lucky for the most part that they were able to age in place in their existing property. But as you kind of point out, a lot of people want to downsize, get into a smaller place, be able to travel a bit more, and kind of eliminate the yard work of owning a single family house. But if life changes on them and having to move multiple times as you get older, that connection to being in a space that's yours becomes really important. So just walk us through that aspect of being able to get older, but then to stay in a place long term.
Oh yeah, like that is definitely something that we think is very attractive for the residents. So um, obviously, I'm in my early 40s, and change is something that, I'm fine with. I like going and experiencing different things. But um, as time goes on, and mobility is more limited and those sorts of things, having to move can be quite traumatic for people, and especially if they have to move multiple times, and especially if they're doing so when they have some sort of a medical issue. So having the ability to stay in your community, in your surroundings, is hugely important. We think it will greatly increase the quality of life for people to say, okay, I have a health issue, but I don't have to worry about finding another place. And even the peace of mind, if you're doing fine, is to say, okay, even if something happens, or even if something happens to my partner, we don't have to worry about finding the next place. We can stay here, and we have that peace of mind knowing that, hey, we're even if something happens, we're fine where we are, and we don't have to uproot and change our surroundings or anything like that.
I'd imagine that this model is extremely popular given the demographic of Saskatchewan. Walk us through ongoing projects that you have ongoing, and then do you have a lot of interest from other communities who say like, "Hey, like we need something like this," in our
Yeah,
area?
so right now, this is the only one that we have. We've got some other rental stuff in some other communities, but this is the only specific place geared to 55 plus. And so this is phase one. The goal is that we would start phase two in the spring. So we do this one, get it filled up, get our design nailed down for the next phases, and then move forward. But absolutely, we have been approached by other communities. I'm thinking four off the top of my head of communities that have been interested to say, hey, this is something that our community is really lacking in options. Some communities have 55 plus living, but in many cases it's quite outdated and not really. Um, it was built a lot of years ago, and is not really suited to the needs of seniors. And so, yeah, we've been approached by other communities to say, hey, would you consider coming here and doing this? And so, absolutely, it's something that we're considering. Um, this is a pretty big project to take on, so we want to make sure that we get this one up and running, and I'm sure we'll learn some lessons along the way, and make some corrections. But yeah, it's definitely a model that's scalable. There's no doubt.
And so from there, Sean, what becomes the thing that would attract a community or have the ability to say, let's go to a Melfort, a Tisdale, Humboldt, and put one of these facilities in place? Is it that you kind of need the amount of people to need to rent or want a place like this? Is there help from investors that you need to walk us through what is the next phases for you to move these things along? Or is it to get, a completion of a building, the model works, and then see where you go from there?
Yeah, I think we are confident in our design and in our operation. So, like I said, I'm sure there's some lessons we'll learn along the way, but I think we've got a lot of that ironed out, and been able to move ahead with. And I think we've got a lot of stuff right. And so, for us, the biggest limiting factor is capital, being able to put this together. Uh, we're investing, several $1 million to put this building up. Construction costs, specifically since the pandemic, have grown dramatically, and so it's a lot of capital to put out to be able to construct something like this in order to make it viable. And so that is definitely a need that we have if we want to scale. In real estate, we're in the project like this specifically, you're putting out a lot of zeros, writing checks for a lot of zeros behind them to before you bring your first dollar of revenue in. Now, the advantage of that is you now have an asset that has a useful life of, it could be a century, it could be more. Like, my goal is that this building, or any building that we build, outlives me by many, many decades. And so, once you've got that in the ground, yeah, it could be a great asset. But it's climbing that hill to be able to get shovels in the ground, and people moved in from dream final possession, it's a big hill to climb, specifically when it comes to capital.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's someone out there listening who is either in need of a property like this, or specifically has a parent or grandparent who they'd love to be a part of this. How do you,
There's very few people I talk to that don't have
someone?
parents or grandparents or some kind of a story about this.
And so, from a waiting list standpoint, what does it look like from that side, Sean? Are you taking clients right now for a waiting list? How does it work if you were a person who either wanted to rent, or a person who has a grandparent or parent who could potentially live in one of these places?
Yeah, so there's two options. So one, right now, we have people that have, put a deposit down, and they say, yes, I want this unit, and their name is on it, and it's secured for them. There's other people who are on our waiting list who say, yes, I'm interested, but I still have my home. I'm still mobile enough. I still want to take care of my own home and live in my own home, and that's where I'm going to stay. But I'm definitely interested as time has gone on, or as time goes on. This is where I want to be. And so when something comes available, let me know. So we have both of those. Now we do still have spots available, and so that we are taking clients. We still are taking clients, and so we do have room available. But if someone is interested in either saying, coming and taking a look and saying, yes, I want this unit, then those are now available. Or if they have the interest in saying, yeah, I like your facility, I like the concept, not quite ready, but definitely interested in being in touch, then we have that option as well.
Over the next, let's say, like 6 months, Sean, what would be really helpful for people to reach out to you for, if they were looking for, if you were specifically looking for something and say, hey, reach out to me if you have any ideas on this? What would specifically you be looking for in the short term here?
Oh, yeah. So in the shorter term, the first thing is, people who are interested in moving into a facility or a community like ours. So people who either are, 55 plus, or have parents or grandparents who are in that situation, that want to downsize out of their home and live somewhere that they can be in a community and be in a place that's more mobility friendly, and in that community. Yeah, we're definitely interested in talking to people in that way. But as well, if people are interested in looking at new ventures and new locations for this, we feel we have a very strong model, and there's so much need in Saskatchewan. This was a few years ago, but the population numbers, and I'm sure you see this as well, the population numbers are just pointing more and more in this direction. The population in Saskatchewan is growing fast. The fastest growing demographic is 65 plus. And so it's just on a real upward trajectory. And so if we want to scale this, absolutely. If there's people out there that are interested in and have capital available and really like the model, we'd love to talk to them.
What's the easiest way to get in touch with you, Sean?
The best way is through our website, claystonedevelopments.com or northpointmanor.com. And all of our information is on there: email, phone number, forms to reach out. We'd love to hear from people.
Brilliant. If I asked everyone who comes on this, and I know you're a listener of the podcast, so you're ready for this one, what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself, and why would you give that advice?
Um, I would say to not be hesitant to make the calls, either to investors or to financial institutions, or to home care companies or engineers or places, existing 55 plus places. I feel I did a decent job of that, but just putting that fear aside and just saying, just pick up the phone, make the call, knock on the door, just just do it. I've been told no so many times by so many people, and that's fine. But it's fine. You take your lumps and you move on, and it's no problem. And eventually you get to yes, and that's certainly what I found.
We discussed other topics that I'd love to get you back on here, Sean, but thank you so much for coming on today and sharing this idea and this project that you're working on. Truthfully, I think it's something that Saskatchewan desperately needs. A past guest who came on, Josh Buchanan, one of the ideas that he had for helping the housing supply was a place for seniors to move to that they could then age in place. Because I think a lot of people right now don't know what's happening with interest rates, with housing, and so they're kind of just staying put, and there's not really a good place for them to go. And the model that you're proposing, it sounds like it's a perfect fit to kind of help move that demographic out of those single family houses, which then helps inventory and supply, and all of those things kind of help create a nice downline. So I think by addressing the issue that I think you're addressing here, I think it also solves other problems that aren't, directly related to that seniors housing.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. That's one aspect we never talked. I don't really think about a lot, but as soon as someone moves in here, they're vacating somewhere else, probably a long time single family home that they've occupied for many decades in many cases.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming on today, Sean, sharing your ideas. Like I said, love to get you back on to pick your brain for more ideas here, but really appreciate you coming on. And if anyone has any questions or follow-ups on this one, I'd urge you to reach out to Sean. I've had really good experiences with him, and it's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks very much, Ron. Appreciate it.